You ever come back from a long day, step out onto your own porch, and find a piece of paper duct taped to your gate like it's a public eviction notice? Yeah, that was my Tuesday. Big red letters, final notice, immediate eviction from my own ranch. The one my grandfather left me. The one I've paid taxes on since I was 19. The one with the oak tree where my daughter learned to ride. It wasn't a prank. It wasn't a mistake. It was the HOA. Some brand new president named Denise, who'd lived in the area for all of 6 months, decided my land didn't fit the community aesthetic. You know, because I don't use beige gravel and I have horses instead of a robotic lawnmower. I stood there, wind kicking dust across my boots, holding that flimsy notice, and all I could think was, are they serious? They were. But what Denise didn't know is, I own the land. And more importantly, I leased the HOA its own clubhouse and their precious parking lot. Let's just say that belonged to me too. And I was about to double their rent, charge them hourly for parking, and remind them that sometimes when you try to evict the wrong cowboy, you end up out in the dust yourself. I've lived on this land for over 25 years. It's 14 acres of open sky, 3 stables, and a pond that runs clean from a spring upstream. My house sits far enough back from the main road that you'd miss it if you blinked, and that's always been the point. Quiet, peaceful home. The community grew over time. What used to be open range turned into carefully planned suburban neighborhoods, with boxy homes and rules for everything from mailbox height to curtain colors. I didn't mind them until they decided they minded me. The first contact with the HOA wasn't even a knock. It was a letter slipped in my gate and signed saying my barn created a visual disturbance. That was my first clue that Denise had taken. Office. She was one of those hyper-organized triple Chardonnay by noon types with a clipboard always in hand and a little dog that barked like it paid rent. Next came the complaints. Too many trucks parked in my own driveway. Horses too noisy. Fence, not regulation height. Mind you, I wasn't even in the HOA. I own my land outright. They just happened to border it. But Denise, she was on a mission. Her goal was community consistency. And to her, my ranch was an eyesore. I tried reasoning. I really did. I even invited her for lemonade to talk things through. She declined. Instead, she called code enforcement and sent 3 citations in 1 week. Then the final blow, an eviction notice. That was just the beginning. The next week was chaos. HOA volunteers showed up at my fence line with tape measures trying to confirm boundary violations. One of them, Ted, a guy who once asked to lease my land for his niece's wedding, was snapping photos like he worked for the CIA. They even flagged my mailbox for being non-standard. I built that mailbox with my dad. It's solid oak, hand-carved, and older than the HOA charter. They fined me $1,200 for non-compliant landscaping. Apparently, wildflowers don't count as native plants in their book. I ignored the notices. Then my trash stopped getting picked up. Turns out the HOA-controlled waste service removed me from the route. They were trying to box me in legally, logistically, emotionally. One day, I came home to find a giant HOA community development banner zip tied to my front gate. They'd photoshopped a rendering of a model home where my barn stood. That was it. I called my lawyer. Turns out the HOA had filed a claim asserting my parcel had been absorbed into their jurisdiction after a redistricting error. They were trying to steal my land through paperwork. But here's what they forgot. The HOA clubhouse that sits on my land. I leased it to the developer years ago. $1 a year as a favor to the community and their parking lot. Still mine's own commercial. They had a clause in their agreement. Any changes to land use allowed me to reevaluate terms and raise rent. So I got to work. First, I sent a certified letter to the HOA board. Attention, President Denise. It was a formal lease revision effective immediately. Their rent was now $6,500 per month. Parking fees $15 per vehicle per day. HOA volunteer vans included. They laughed it off until I installed brand new signs. Private parking. Guests must pay at kiosk. I hired a local security company to enforce it with tickets and boots. That same week, I put up another sign. Due to breach of goodwill, the HOA clubhouse lease is being terminated in 30 days. Cue the panic. Suddenly, Denise was calling me. I let it go to voicemail. I started getting visits from other board members. Now in panic mode. Karen number 2, Cheryl, I think, offered to negotiate. I smiled and said I'd consider it if they revoked every false complaint, sent an apology letter and removed Denise from the board. They refused. So I blocked off the backlit, the only overflow parking they had. Put up hay bales, posted 2 alpacas there for fun. Their next board meeting had nowhere to park. The security team issued 19 tickets. HOA members started turning on each other. Neighbors who had stayed quiet, they started coming by with cookies, thanking me for putting her in her place. And Denise, she threatened to sue. But my attorney had already filed a counter-suit for harassment, defamation, and property interference. I was calm. I was ready. And the final card was still up my sleeve. The day of their big summer gala, the HOA planned to unveil their new community motto, Together in Order. Only problem, the clubhouse was locked. Police termination clause. I changed the locks at midnight. Denise showed up in pearls and heels, furious. This is sabotage. No, I said, handing her the lease termination letter. This is called property rights. The guests stood around confused. The parking lot was full of cones and 2 alpacas stared them down from the fire lane. She tried to push past me. Security intervened. Then it happened. Sheriff Dugan, a long-time friend of my late father, rolled up in his cruiser. Everything all right here? He asked. Denise started ranting. Legal jargon, complaints, empty threats. Dugan pulled out his own copy of the lease. Ma'am, this man owns the land, including this clubhouse, including your parking. Denise went pale, then red, then silent. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Who's evicted now?" I just tipped my hat and walked away, the screen door slamming shut behind me as I went inside to watch the rest unfold through the window. Public embarrassment, legal failure, and poetic justice. It took a while for the dust to settle. Denise resigned. The HOA quietly dropped all claims. And now they pay full rent on time every month with a smile on their faces. They even replaced the clubhouse sign. It now reads Community Hall courtesy of the ranch. The alpaca's still there. They've become mascots. One's named Denise. You know, I never wanted a war. I just wanted peace. But sometimes peace has to be enforced with a legal clause and a parking cone. If you're dealing with an overreaching HOA, know your rights, know your property lines, and never lease land without reading the fine print. So, what would you have done in my booths? Comment below with justice served if you made it this far, and let me know what you would have done differently. And hey, next time someone tries to evict a cowboy from his own land, remind them not all fences are meant to be crossed.